Hey everybody, so I, 37 female, have recently decided to file for full custody of my 5-year-old son. And I've been thinking about it for quite a while. I finally decided to go through with it because I think I'm done giving my ex-husband second and third and God knows how many chances. We'd been divorced for the past 3 years, and it was pretty hard for me because it just came out of nowhere. We had been happy together, or at least that's what I thought. We met through a couple of friends and started dating 8 years ago. We got married 5 years back and then we had our son. But then, all of a sudden, 3 years back, he told me that he couldn't do this anymore and confessed that he had been having an emotional affair behind my back with one of his co-workers. He told me he had never acted on it, but they had been flirting back and forth and he had caught feelings for her. But since we had a child together and we had been together for quite a while, I decided to tell him that I was willing to give him a chance since he hadn't exactly acted on anything. I told him that I was feeling to try marriage counseling to repair our marriage that I didn't even know needed repairing. But he told me that it was not going to work because he was done with us. And he had been losing feelings for me consistently. He basically just said that he had been trying to pretend that everything was all right for the sake of our marriage and for our son, but he couldn't do it anymore. And he needed to get out of it. So that was incredibly hurtful. But since the truth was out, I couldn't pretend I didn't see it anymore and go back to being normal, so we decided to get a divorce mutually. It was a relatively straightforward and simple process. I didn't want to drag it out, and even for the custody arrangement, I agreed to his terms because they were fair enough. He got to spend the weekends with our son. I got him for the rest of the week, and he would be paying me a certain amount of child support. That was the arrangement. So we stuck to that for a year or so, but slowly things started changing and it was quite baffling. He would just cancel his weekends with our son randomly, citing excuses about last-minute client meetings or emergencies with his family. This started happening frequently and I found it quite fishy because I could feel that he was lying to me and somehow trying to avoid spending time with our son. And then one weekend when he cancelled saying that his mom was sick and he needed to be there to care for her, I received a message from a common friend and finally figured out what exactly was going on with him. I received a picture of him and another woman in a restaurant taken from a bit of a distance, but I could recognize him even then. And my friend told me that she had been out with a couple of her friends and my husband hadn't spotted her, but she had seen him and he happened to be out with the woman who looked significantly younger than him, probably in her early 20s. This friend of mine knew how my husband had been cancelling his weekends with his son, so she told me what she had seen, and using that picture, I confronted him the very next day. He had been caught in his lie and he tried to talk his way around it. But eventually he confessed that he had been actively going out on dates, and since he was busy during the week, he had to keep his weekends free. And he regretted the fact that he couldn't spend more time with his son. But he also claimed that he was getting along in age and he really wanted to get married and settle down. I found it bizarre and I didn't really care for his explanation because I could see the reality even without him spelling it out for me. He just wanted to go out on dates with young, hot women, have flings with them and have some fun without getting serious or any sort of commitment. Because if he really wanted to get married and settle down, he would be going after age-appropriate women and not girls who were either still in college or had just graduated when he himself was in his late 30s. But anyway, that's my opinion. What he does with his life is none of my business, so I just told him that there was an arrangement that we had agreed to and he needed to respect that because this was our son. So he had certain responsibilities towards the child as well. And I couldn't let the poor kid down every weekend because he wanted to go out and have fun on dates on weekends. He agreed to it, and for a couple of months things were okay, but then again, for the past couple of months, he's been acting up and cancelling weekends with his son. But now that I've caught on, I haven't let it slide, and we've been fighting about it on and off. And I also threatened to file for full custody quite a couple of times. But he talked me out of it every time because at the end of the day, I knew that my son loves his dad and he loves his time with him. And I didn't want to take that away from him, regardless of my equation with my ex. However, all of that changed recently after my son's 5th birthday. That was about 2 weeks ago, and I had planned a nice party for him. And obviously, even though I don't like Caleb at all, I had invited him because he's the father after all. And my son had been looking forward to that party for quite some time. So when Caleb did not show, it hurt him a lot, and he ended up crying at his birthday when I broke the news to him right before the party was about to begin. Of course, he's a child, so it was relatively easy to console him and make him forget once his friends started arriving. But even then, it was just not fair that Caleb had done this kind of thing once again. It was even worse because for the past couple of weeks, my son had been asking me several times a day if his dad would be there at the party, and I had kept promising him that he would be there for sure. Because that's what Caleb had told me. He had kept telling me that no matter what happened, he would definitely be there. But at the very last minute, as usual, he cancelled. He told me that his sister had gone into labor and so he would need to be there for her. And I didn't even try to argue with him at that point in time because I knew that eventually I would find out the truth. At that point in time, I was more worried about how my son would react to the fact that his father was not coming. So that day itself, I didn't speak to him, but then later I decided to call my ex-sister-in-law to confirm what my husband had told me, just in case he had been telling me the truth, which was unlikely, but even then, I wanted to make sure. Anyway, when I called her, she seemed surprised to hear from me in the first place, but because she and I used to get along well in the past, she was nice enough to me and I was able to ask her what I wanted, and obviously she was quite shocked when I asked her about her baby because, of course, if she had gone into labor on my son's birthday, then there must be some news of a baby. But she told me that she hadn't even been pregnant and had no idea what I was talking about. So then I explained the situation to her, and she finally got it and told me that she was pretty sure that she had nothing to do with what my husband had told me. And that was all I needed. I thanked her. I contacted my lawyer, and then I decided to confront Caleb, and I told him that I had already filed for full custody, and this time there was no way that he would be able to talk his way out of it, because I couldn't let him keep doing this to our son over and over again. I was done with whatever game he was playing at. He could live his life the way he wanted to. I didn't care about that. But my son and I were not going to be a part of it anymore. And once again, when I told him about this, he tried to tell me that he was never going to repeat this again, that he just wanted me to forgive him my last time. Then he started telling me that he had been going out with this woman for quite a while. I didn't even bother asking her age or her name or anything about her because by now I knew his type. I had seen him posting these women on his Instagram stories occasionally. I had viewed their profiles since he follows them, and every single one of them is under 25, young, beautiful. And because I know for a fact that he's not being introduced to these women by his friends, I know that he's definitely hooking up with them on dating apps. And I know him enough by now to know that these flings don't last for more than 1 or 2 months at most. So whatever he was telling me about him starting to get serious with this woman was just a bunch of lies to try and defend himself and nothing else. He was getting sick of it as well. So I told him exactly what I thought. I voiced out all my opinions that I've mentioned so far, and he didn't like it one bit, probably because it was too close to the truth. I don't know if it's a midlife crisis or whatever, and neither did I care to find out. I just didn't want to be caught up in it, and neither did I want my son to be a part of it. That's all. So when he started telling me that I had no right to tell him what he should do with his life, and that I didn't have the right to judge him, I told him that I wasn't judging him, but I was simply informing him that his lifestyle was getting in the way of his relationship with his son. And at 5 years old, he definitely had a lot of feelings, and Caleb was hurting them. So I couldn't allow him to do that anymore. And that was why I was filing for full custody. But apart from that, I couldn't care less about what he does with his life. And that made our argument even worse, because he started accusing me of trying to take away his son from him on purpose, and trying to make him look like a villain for wanting to move on with his life. He started telling me that our son was pretty young, and in a few months he wouldn't even remember his birthday, so it was not something that really mattered in the long run. And it was ridiculous that I was filing for full custody just because he had missed one birthday. What he didn't understand was that it was not just about a birthday party. And I didn't have the time or energy to explain that to him. So I just hung up. And that was it. Now it's been a couple of days, and he has kept on trying to guilt trip me into reversing my decision somehow. But I'm not willing to do it. I've spoken to my friends about it. I've spoken to my parents about it as well. And they think that I'm doing the right thing. But he keeps begging for one last chance, and it's gotten to the point where I really feel bad. Honestly, I know how much my son loves his father, and I don't want to take that away from him. But I also do think that whatever's been going on, it's not fair to my son or me. So I'm in two minds right now, and I don't know what to do. AITA here for filing for full custody of my son. Update 1. Hi everybody. Thank you so much for commenting on my post and being so supportive. It really means a lot to me. So I have decided to go through with what I had wanted, and I'm not going to back down. Caleb and I have already met with our lawyers for mediation sessions a couple of days ago. And since it's been a week since my original post here, I've had plenty of time to think about what I want to do, and that's what I've decided. That I want to go through with my decision to file for full custody, and I'm going to fight until I get it. Because I think I've given Caleb enough chances to show me that he has changed. It's not like I've been completely heartless in that regard. However, he hasn't changed at all, and I don't know what's wrong with him, but ever since we got divorced, it's like he's a different person altogether. And I don't really care about that. Like I said, he can do literally whatever he wants, but not at the expense of my son's happiness. That's what has been happening so far, because even though my son loves him a lot, Caleb has been hurting him by cancelling plans, and for what? Just so he can go out on a date and hook up with some 20-year-old? Is that really his priority right now, as compared to spending time with his son? I mean, come on. He can't blame me and call me heartless for doing this now. I'm just doing what's in the best interests of my son, that's all. And if that makes me the bad guy, then so be it. I'm ready to be the bad guy if that's what it takes. Besides, his own family is on my side here, because I remember that when I spoke to his sister to confirm whether what he had been telling me about her going into labor had been the truth or not, and when I explained the situation to her, she was quite shocked that Caleb was doing things like this. Now that she knows that I've decided to file for full custody, she reached out to me a couple of days back and told me that I was really brave for doing this, and even though Caleb was her brother, she would like to let me know that she thinks that what I'm doing is the right thing to do. And I'm really happy that she decided to reach out to me because it's just validated my decision even more. The only request that she had for me was that she and her parents, my ex-in-laws, should still be allowed to see my son because, after all, they have not done anything wrong. And I agree with that. My ex-in-laws have all actually been very nice even after the divorce. And they've been there for every birthday except this most recent one. But that's just because my in-laws had to attend a funeral of one of their very close friends, and they had even told me about it much before Caleb cancelled, and had sent a gift for my son as well. So I get along well with them, and I'm not holding anything against them regardless of my situation with Caleb. Besides, I think that they know that Caleb is not right here, and that if push comes to shove, he's probably not going to get full custody. And I'm not saying that that's the only reason why they're being so supportive of me, but I have a feeling that that's part of the reason why. I don't mind it though, because I'm pretty sure that it's difficult for them as well to choose between having a good relationship with their son and being able to see their grandson. So I guess everyone's in a bad situation because of all this, and it could have all been so easily avoided only if Caleb used his brains just a little. Unfortunately, he only wants to think about himself and do things his way, without caring about how it affects other people, and then he keeps expecting more and more chances without bothering to change himself. So I think it's about time that life gave him a reality check, and he realized that he cannot take everything for granted and expect things to always work out the way he wants. I don't know how long this custody battle is going to take. I have a feeling that it might go to court, but anyway, I'm ready to do what it takes because I'm not going to let Caleb keep hurting our son like this. Update 2. Hey, so it's been a week and a half since my last update, and today Caleb and I met once again with our lawyers for another mediation session, and once again we were not able to come to any sort of conclusion. Honestly, I think at the rate that we're going, we will have to take this to court because there's just no other option now. Besides, after what happened today, I think it's going to be pretty necessary because after we were done with the meeting, I was about to leave, but then Caleb came up to me right before I was about to get into the car and told me that he wanted to see our son. It was kind of surprising because after I decided not to back down, he kind of blocked me everywhere and stopped texting me altogether, which also meant that he hadn't asked about our son for quite a while, which I didn't think was anything out of the ordinary, because even after cancelling weekends earlier, he would never, ever call me to check up on our son or try to make it up to him. He would just wait until the next weekend, and then he would come and pick up our son and pretend like nothing had even happened and that he hadn't made our son cry and let him down just the previous weekend. Of course, my son never complained because he's too young to understand these things, and by the next weekend and the next time that he saw his father, he would forget about how he had been let down. I wouldn't. And neither would I forget about the fact that after cancelling, Caleb has never once called to check up or to talk to his son. It's always felt like he was constantly treating his time with his son as an obligation, not something that he does out of love. Anyway, again, that's just my opinion on whether it should be some sort of basis or judgment or not is the family court's business and not mine. But today, when he asked to see our son, I told him I was going to pick him up from school and then drop him at my mom's place before going to work. So he could pick up our son and drop him at my mom's place if he wanted to spend some time with him. I thought that was a fair enough proposition, but instead he started telling me that I couldn't keep our son away from him like this, and that he wanted to spend the weekend with our son. It was a Friday today, and I thought about saying no, but then I decided that since this situation was probably going to go to court anyway, there was no point in fighting it. And eventually, obviously, I didn't plan on taking away visitation rights from him, so I agreed to it. Big mistake, obviously. I shouldn't have done that because he did pick up our son from school, and I informed my mom that she wouldn't have to wait for him because Caleb was going to spend the day with our son. So once I was done with that, I went to my workplace, but just about an hour later, Caleb called me and started telling me that he had to drop our son off at my mom's place because he did not want to spend the day with Caleb and he was very cranky and he wanted to be with me instead. Caleb had tried to get him to calm down, but he was not having it. So Caleb tried to tell me that he was going to drop him off at my mom's place, and I tried to call my mom to inform her, but she told me that since I had cancelled, she had already made plans for lunch with her friends. She even offered to cancel, but I didn't have the heart to make her do that. So I decided to take a half day and I decided to pick our son up from Caleb's place. But surprisingly, when I got there, our son seemed to have changed his mind and didn't seem to be unhappy about anything at all, like Caleb had been claiming. When I went over to pick him up, my son did not look like he had been crying at all and seemed to be quite happy. And even when he saw me, he came and hugged me. But then he started saying that he wanted to stay a little more with Caleb and he wanted me to stay with him so the three of us could spend time together and play with him. This was very confusing for me because this was completely opposite of what I had been expecting. And that's when I started feeling a little suspicious that maybe Caleb was just trying to get rid of our son by making up stories about him. Because, of course, like any other kid, my son also has times when he only wants me and nobody else. But in the past couple of months, that has rarely ever happened, especially not when he's with his father. I didn't bring anything up because I didn't want to accuse Caleb of lying to me, especially when this didn't even matter since in the next few weeks, things were going to change anyway. But I have my suspicions, and even after my son seemed to be willing to stay, Caleb started telling me that he had been crying the entire afternoon, and he thought that it would be best for us to go back home so our son could recalibrate. And it felt like he was doing his best to get us out as quickly as possible. And I honestly don't know what that was all about. But I have a gut feeling telling me that there was something off about the whole thing, and I'm going to find out. I'm going to get to the bottom of it anyhow, because I just feel like he had been lying. I just feel like I should have stuck to my original plan instead of letting Caleb take our son home with him. And this way, at least I wouldn't have lost out on a day of work. But well, at least I tried. So, well, update 3. So I did something, and it might be a little unethical, but I had to do it. Here's the thing. After what I spoke about in my last update, about how Caleb was acting very suspiciously, and I posted it here, a bunch of you guys said that something fishy was going on. I just couldn't get it out of my head, so today I decided to investigate. I knew that Caleb had security cameras installed around his house. All I needed was the footage to confirm my suspicions, but I didn't know I was going to access it. That was my only problem, which was pretty easily solved by simply thinking back into the past. Here's the deal. I know that Caleb has a tendency to forget things, so he uses the same kind of password for most things. So I drove to his house, used his Wi-Fi to get access to the security camera network, and after one incorrect guess, I was in. He had basically used his first pet's name and our son's birthday as the password. something that was easy for him to remember and for me to guess. And once I had access to the camera footage, I looked through the date when I came over here, and sure enough, just about 2 hours after my son and I had left, another car pulled up in front of his house, and the woman he'd been seeing for the past couple of months walked towards his door. So I guess he was not lying about being serious about this girl, because I know that she's been featured on his stories and on his posts for a couple of times in the past couple of months, which I guess is this generation's way of claiming that things are serious. Because other than her, most of the girls that he's been with in the past have only been featured on his stories, but never on his feed. This, though, seems a bit more permanent, which is good for him, but it just proves that he lied to me. And I'm definitely going to confront him about it, because that was not cool. I'm also going to have to admit that I obtained this footage a bit unethically, but again, what he did was not that great either. Anyway, I'm planning on doing it later today. I hope that it goes well. Update 4. Hey, so I guess I didn't need to confront Caleb after all. I thought I would talk to him 2 days back and when I posted here, but I didn't know how to bring it up with him, so I started delaying it. And today he was the one who called me first, but I found it a little strange. But then I picked up, and then he told me that he needed to talk to me in person. I met him for lunch at a restaurant near my office, where he told me that last evening he had proposed to his girlfriend and they were planning on getting married, so he was going to agree to my terms because his girlfriend still hadn't met our son. Because he didn't know how I was going to take it. And right now, given the situation, he didn't want to make things worse with me because he thinks that I might cause problems for him in future. So he's decided to agree to my terms, provided I don't create trouble for him and his girlfriend and I let our son spend time with the woman and don't try to turn him against her. I wasn't planning on doing that anyway, but I didn't want to argue with him, so I just agreed. I thought about bringing up the footage from the security camera, but in the end, I changed my mind about it because clearly things were getting sorted out on their own. So there was no reason for me to go out of my way and tell him about what I had seen. And I told him I wished him luck for the future and left it at that. Because honestly, my son and I finally have a way out of this nonsense, so I'll not jeopardize it. He can visit, and since my son is now going to have a stepmom, I'll teach him to be respectful towards her as well, and hopefully things will work out for the best in the future. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.